Hey,
Hello. Oops. There. How's it going?
it was me probably on the miscommunications. I just thought that it was later than 6 for us last time, so I was just like, well, 7 might be a little bit better because of
Hmm.
everything that's going on. I was working on that presentation for tomorrow too, so I sort of got
Oh,
sidetracked with that. Yeah, just busy trying to get that prepared for tomorrow, so I don't have much to do but just go over it. So
what's
it's all
the
good.
presentation for?
The leadership class.
Oh, cool. Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like we have some other classmates who
Labor.
are in that.
Oh yeah, I think we have labor together, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was on Saturday, but
Yeah. Yeah, that leadership class is because they got the dinner tomorrow too. So I might just
Mhm.
go in just to present because I like it better in person than being on Zoom presenting. It's a lot
Yeah,
simpler. Yeah.
yeah, I also do too.
It just seems like more it's better.
Hmm.
Because we just did it in Megan's class on Wednesday. And I thought that she said it was supposed to be in person. So I go to the school. I'm at school looking around
Oh
for the
no.
class. So I text her. I'm like, "Where's the class at?" She's like, "Oh, we're online." I was like, "Oh, I gotta go to the
Oh
library."
shit.
Yeah, and it was just I never really been at the library, so it was just I had to find one of those booths to go into and all that. And
Uh-huh.
it was lucky. It was just, it wasn't a huge presentation, but still.
Uh-huh.
I thought because last time we were in class with her, she made us come in for presentations, so
Yeah.
I assumed it was going to be the same way. But it's all
Hmm.
good. So yeah, I feel a lot better, like
Good.
way better. So then the last time we were talking, I was just really under the weather, just bad. But I'm
Yep.
good now. I got my energy back.
That's
So
good. Yes,
uh,
literally so many people I know are sick. Like so many people at my work are out sick and like just yeah, a lot of casual acquaintances. I'm just like, damn, it's it is rough out there right now.
well,
Everybody.
I was listening to what you said, and it made sense afterwards when I was saying like it didn't feel like COVID, and you were like, well, that's the problem because it's there's so many variations of it, like
Yeah.
this strain's not like that strain. So I was like,
Hmm.
well, maybe I might have some form of it because
Hmm.
I just felt really bad. So it made sense.
Hmm. Well, I'm glad you're feeling better.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's all good. Yeah, more schoolwork. I can get the schoolwork done.
Yeah, right.
It's the trade-off.
Yeah.
I just want to start and just have you, because like I said, last semester, I was really impressed by, your knowledge and your advocacy when it came to COVID. And it just seems like when it was like the conversation piece, everybody was concerned. And as soon as it stopped being that focal point, people were like, oh, okay, let's move on to something different. But there's people, I mean, it seemed immediate, like you said, there's so many people sick, there's so much stuff going on. So
Hmm.
um, I just really wanted to talk to you about it and just get your take on it. And what should we be doing? How precautious should we be? Is it we're gonna get our heads around what's truly going on and how seriously should we take this? So I'm gonna let you tell me what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, I appreciate the yeah, opportunity. I'm very much like a nerd about this shit. And yeah, it's one of those things where it just like turned into a special interest where I'm just like, wow, there's because I like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like I kind of ran into like enough gaps in knowledge where I was like, this doesn't make sense. And like then I was like, okay, well, I need to find something to make it make sense. And then the more I don't know, the more things you find out, it's just like, wait, what? So
Well, do you have you let's what just as I was thinking, have you ever thought about changing what you're doing as far as your master's into something related to this whole thing, like what's going on?
I mean, I debated so I transferred from Metro State or it's not from, I transferred to Metro State from the U um, when I was in a master's in public policy. And I debated getting also a master's in public health, like doing a dual degree. Um, and I ended up, yeah, I could not handle the like workload the way that the tuition banding works there. It was a stupid thing to do with like money and also having to work and whatever. But yeah, it was interesting to me because I was like, yeah, because I like am very interested on the research end about like COVID for sure, but COVID as an entry point for like the way that like we structure society around like um being like abled and like having, I mean, having privileges generally like across the board, and kind of like wanting a systemic analysis of that. And while that is still super interesting to me, the where where I keep finding myself coming from for things is like from an organizing standpoint, like wanting to like bring peers and like it's funny, I was just doing some of the reading for our labor and organizing class, which I don't know if you've gotten to yet, but I really like this reading. And there's a lot of discussion about like the ordinary person and just like how like there's a lot of power in ordinary people, and like you have to be able to like leverage that to make changes. And so like I can like advocate for changes, but like where I want to be is like with the people and like organizing folks and like my peers um around like things. And like the research bend is helpful for that. But yeah, but like I, for example, if I like went into like epidemiology or like, yeah, I don't know, the anything that's more medical related, much as that is like interesting to me, I like working more with like people on the end of like actually moving the needle and like making changes kind of like on the ground, if that makes sense.
Yes, it makes perfect sense. Because in leadership, they talk a lot about different forms of leadership, and some of leadership's roles play the back, and some of leadership's play the front.
Mhm.
Some or leadership roles are organization where there's no head, and some leadership roles have this hierarchy form. So it's understanding. I can understand your position and say, hey, I really want to be at the forefront of this, and I don't want to be behind the scenes. Um, so yeah, I can understand that. Far as the like all this, because you would always have mask and class. Where were you getting those? Were they getting donated, or were you? How was that? How were you getting so many different variations of
Yeah, so I have joined up with kind of a, I don't know, it's just like a ragtag like mutual aid group. So it's not like we're not like a nonprofit or anything like that. But uh the group itself is called COVID Aware Twin Cities, um and it is what, yeah, what I described, which is just like a mutual aid project, just like trying to get people what they need in order to protect themselves from like mandatory infections.
it? Hmm.
um and some of that, and so like one of the aspects of that group that I'm involved with is the mask and zine distribution group. So we have, so like for a large amount of the masks that we source that we just like donate and give out to people um came from Project N95, which sadly no longer exists. um but they were literally just like sourcing huge amounts of like, so N95 is just a type of mask, it's a high quality respirator. um and so they would just like source high quality masks and just send them for free to organizations who are distributing them to the public. And so when, yeah, so we were able to get in touch with them, say hello, we would like some masks. They brought us a pallet full of masks. I can't remember how many it was like 10,000 masks or something. Or like 20,000, I don't know, it was a huge amount of masks. um and uh and so yeah, and so we just like distributed those to some different pickup sites, and now folks just like hand like deliver them to folks if they're requested. And so I was able to just like tap those reserves and just, and so that's, yeah, that's where I get the box that I bring in for folks to use. So I do a variety of ones because I know that like I don't know, I spent like the first, I don't know, an embarrassing amount of time, just like the first year or like year and a half, maybe 2 years of the pandemic, just being like wearing really shitty masks that like don't seal well and like whatever, because like I had a lot of sensory issues with like things pulling on my ears, things being too tight, like not liking how they feel. And so I'm just like, I know that if folks don't like how they feel, or at least like are not tolerable, they're not going to wear them because I wouldn't.
Yeah.
And so like the variety was important for me to offer and still is. So I still drag still drag shit around to the classes
That's
because like yeah, because I mean I want people to be able to choose something that actually works for them. Rather than saying like here's a one size fits all literally and like if it doesn't fit your face, deal with it. Like
yeah,
that's
yeah,
that really
pretty
bothers me.
much.
But
Yeah,
yeah.
pretty much that's just how it's been. Like I know you're not a statistician or you haven't done any qualitative analysis, but from just your own personal experience, I mean, who are those individuals suffering? What population, what community is it? Has it found a community that seems to be more prone to getting COVID and continually to get it? Or is it just this random anybody gets it situation that you've seen?
Um it is, I mean, I definitely have some statistical background in this because again I'm a nerd. So even though like especially in the beginning like of the onset of the pandemic, like um I don't know if you remember in this fugue state we were all in where I forget who it was, but it was like celebrities being like, "Oh my God, it's the great equalizer. Everyone could get this. Everyone is vulnerable."
Mhm,
And it's like, I mean, kinda, but also like not everyone can afford like a private jet so that you don't have to like travel with other people but still can get around,
mhm.
or like or even just like your own car. Like people who have to take like public transit are like shit out of luck. Like
Yeah.
they just like have to be exposed in a lot more ways. Also like the I mean the phrase Davos safe is as such because um like the what do they call it? I don't remember. It's like it's when all the like billionaires get together in Davos and talk about like their lofty ideas about the world's problems once a year. I cannot remember and I don't care what it's called, but like they, you know, they don't like wear masks there, but you better believe that they have like UV like filtration and also like high quality like ventilation and air purifiers going and also like they just and like repeated like testing and like rapid turnarounds and like they have all of the privileges that you need in order to like be able to do that shit and also not be super worried about getting it because they know that it's important to avoid it, but they can just like afford the resources to not on a
Yeah.
like private level.
Mhm,
So anyway, sorry, to get back to your question. The so I mean this statistically the populations that we know are both most likely to get it. Um, and this is also true for the most part as populations who are most likely to have really severe outcomes or more adverse outcomes. Um, like first and foremost are is mostly indigenous populations, so Native American populations, and I'm speaking just for the US. There's yeah, probably some variety, maybe not like that much
mhm,
globally, but I don't actually know that. In the US, at least, indigenous populations are extremely high risk and very likely to get it. People in prisons, so anyone who's in like an institutionalized setting where healthcare, if you want to call it that, like is really highly restricted, and like also you have populations that are just like really closely like pushed together and like where protections, for example, like masks are just like either claimed to be like they're not safe and so like you know we can't let them wear them or whatever
mhm,
um and like but also true for like nursing homes too, like you have it's a congregate setting with a bunch of different people and also the people taking care of the vulnerable populations are coming and going and you know maybe doing whatever in their outside life and creating high risk exposures for the people that they're supposed to be caring for. And yeah, I think a lot about like the prison guards who are just like both like I mean fuck vaccinations and also like COVID isn't real and also like I'm
mhm.
gonna cough all over like the inmates that I'm like, you know,
Yeah.
serving or whatever. Um,
Yeah.
so like the so those are some of the populations. Also, folks who are forced to work like in person and in public facing positions. So if you're a service worker, if you like, and especially now that there's an increase in not just like no mask requirements, but like a ban on wearing masks. There was In and Out in California well, semi recently, where they banned all of their employees from wearing masks. You can't wear one, and if you want to, you have to go through HR and get a like a medical whatever, like an exemption, and then they'll provide you with a mask, which will probably be very uncomfortable because they get to decide which one. And then you can wear that one.
Well, so you know, so that's so weird because you've seen the trend where they were forcing you to wear it, forcing you to go get vaccinated, dependent on it. Now you
Mm.
see this reverse trend where now you have to go to HR to wear a mask. And I don't know at what particular time this shifted because all of a sudden you can go in any place without a mask. Then it became
Mhm.
optional. Then it became we don't really care. Now it's like, and I don't, I remember in class when you talked about how they reduced the 14 days based on the airline industry, you know, which was interesting. So
Mhm.
would you think that big businesses, because of need of employees, are really running how take a look at COVID now? I mean, because it was just like I said before, it was just everything was so much about not contracting or spreading. Now it's like, who cares?
Mhm. I mean, I feel like it's because like we kind of went into like a memory hole about a lot of things from like 2020 and maybe even like 2021 about how that timeline of events happened because it does feel like there was like a really rapid culture shift where suddenly it was like, oh yeah, this is the norm, and also you're fucking weird if you like wear mask places or whatever.
Hmm.
um and so like I have found it helpful to like comb through just how quickly the US culture shifted within like the first few months of 2020, because like when there were like originally like the stay-at-home orders, um which were, loosely implemented depending on like where you were, um because the US never did what other parts of the world did, which were actually like enforcing like no, you cannot go anywhere. Here it was just like please stay home. If you have to go places, you can, but like try not to. They were more rigorous about it after the murder of George Floyd when they were like, you can't like when they had the curfews, like the true actual curfews of like, yeah, we'll like, fucking arrest you, or I don't know, we'll set cops on you if you're out and about after like this time. So it was, yeah, they were more stringent about things then than when, the initial onset of the pandemic happened. um and like the yeah, I don't know, we because we had, it feels like such a like lack of actual like methods to implement anything that involves like, what's the word I'm looking for, like community action around things, because like it's we're now viewing masking as like a very highly individualized things, like you choose if you mask, and like, just like do it if you feel like it, and also if you feel like you're high risk, or whatever their messaging is now. And um when what I find instructive about like how to actually like think about this in a helpful way is to remember that this is actually like a community action. Like masks are highly effective at a population level. So like when there's an entire like group and like, society that's like wearing them during, especially during acute crises, but like outside of that, now that we're just in kind of in a milieu of constant like sickness, um, it is more effective when more people wear them than when individuals are choosing to wear them. And so like, yeah, so like even at the beginning of trying to implement all like anything like masking, you had, yeah, you had like these allowances, and like I was working in the service industry too, and like I remember the health department during our health inspection was asking like, what do you say to people, like, if they come in unmasked or whatever, and I was saying like, well, you do what you can. I like can't force anyone to wear one, but I like try, and they're just like, yeah, that's about the best that you can do. Like, we don't expect anyone to force like anyone to do. And so like even from like a health department standpoint, they were like, well, we can't make anyone do anything. Which is like very depressing, I think. When you're talking about like a health crisis like
Yes.
the one that we witnessed. And so the shift from there to kind of where we're at now happened, I, as you correctly identify, in the interest of capital. Um, so it was, I mean, truly like I what I tell people is like the reason that I am still masking is because I do not take direction from neither the Trump nor the Biden administration. Both of them agreed that like COVID, as much as it is a thing, it's not important time to quell it down and tell people to like move on and like, please forget that this happened, um, or is still a thing. And so like the process by which that happened was facilitated through like whatever was in the interest of economic powers, and like elite powers. And so that was kind of, yeah, to your point, like the Delta quarantine down to 5 days is kind of a prime example of that. But I mean, really, like the, I mean, anyone who like is anyone who stands to benefit from people being out and about, spending money and traveling and like, anything in any of those regards is someone who stands to benefit or stands to lose if there's a visual reminder of a mask. Since that is, it's so contested, I think because it's so visual, when you look at someone, that's like something that you see and reminds you of like, oh yeah, the times that you've been sick, or like the people that you know are sick, or like the like health problems that some people now have that are like ongoing after getting sick, or whatever. And if you want folks to disregard that and spend their money on things that are high risk but will generate you profit, then you need to implement things to kind of remove that. And vaccination was a way to do that, where yeah, they really did really well to like to waste that technology, unfortunately, because we like the more transmission that whatever, I can leave the technicalities out of it. Basically,
Well,
like if you are just allowing mass transmission to just keep going, this virus mutates super fast. So if we get a new vaccine every year or so, tailored to a vaccine, or it's tailored to a variant from whatever it was 8 months ago, 12 months ago, by the time it comes out, it's maybe more helpful than other ones, but like, but it's not nearly as effective as it was, as the original one was against the variant that we were in at that time when the vaccine first came out. So basically, we're losing the effectiveness of it, and but at the same time, the CDC and like across the board, it was like, oh, if you have your vaccine passport, then you can like get places. So there was like a bit of a vaccine divide, which I still think is absolute bullshit. Because also that's, if you'll allow me one technical aside, vaccines are supposed to be the last layer of protection, not your first.
mhm,
So your vaccine is what's going to protect you against specifically um, severe outcomes and death. So it's going to keep it from being as rough as it could possibly be if you didn't have it, and will hopefully keep you from dying in the process. And it's been very effective at that. It does not protect against getting infected. So you can still transmit the virus, you can still catch it. And what we're treating it as is that if you have that, you're good. When it's
yeah.
supposed to be a layered mitigation, you're supposed to, you want to keep an eye out for good ventilation, and like we should be able to access buildings that have good filtration and good air quality. Um, Masks, of course, like testing, like sick pay so people don't have to come into work when they're sick. Like there's so many layers that should be in place, and instead we're saying you don't need to worry about any of that.
Mhm.
Please just keep coming to work, and also like keep spending your money. And if you have a vaccine, you can just vax and relax and you're good. And so I've found that so infinitely frustrating. Sorry, I've talked a lot there, so I'll go ahead and pause.
No, that was good because I mean it really explains a lot because you just see certain things happening and then I mean you really don't question it. You just assume like of course
Mhm.
if I got the vaccination I'm good and I should and like you said I can go pretty much everywhere and I'm pretty much I'm good. I got the vaccination, I have the card, I have whatever. And you don't really get into why or what or anything like that. So they've been doing, and mostly, like we both know, it was economically driven. Um, I like to do when I do these. Can you take me back to when you first heard it or first was exposed to it or where you were, what was going on? Because I remember when I first experienced it or saw it first, international, and I'm like, okay, they're wearing masks over there, and then cut it coming over here, and then everything with it, and just the changes, the things like when did you start to take it serious, and what made you take it serious?
Hmm. Yeah. So I was um I was working for my family's small business when it started, which is just like a Mexican bake at home like restaurant. So is yeah, it was public facing, but like weirdly insulated is because we don't do dine in or anything, just all food prep and whatever. But anyway, so like yeah, I that's where I was at the time. And I like I have like a few kind of key memories from the beginning. Like it is very clear in my mind that like I don't know if you remember when the CDC was initially like, yeah, masks don't work. So don't like this won't work for that. So don't go getting masks. Don't worry about getting them, which we found out later was because like it was just like the worst messaging in the world. Because what they were actually doing was trying to preserve the mask stock for healthcare workers, which is the wrong fucking way to do that. Because if whatever, yeah, they really approached that wrong. So I remember like being like, oh yeah, well like apparently there's nothing you can do anyway, like a mask isn't going to help or whatever. Um and so like I like did take that guidance at face value. And it like wasn't till my sister was like, no, that's not right, like here's like some data about it. And I was like, huh. And I remember being like, why would like public messaging about public health be incorrect about this? And like not only that, but like be blatantly opposed. Um, and so like, yeah, off to a terrible start right there. Um, but like after that, I was like, oh, okay, well, yeah, that makes sense. And so like I did like in terms of like personal like mitigations, I like wore cloth masks for the most part because like again, I really hated like ear loops that pulled too much. And so if they were actually like pulling on my ears to seal against my face, I hated it because it was just yeah, not did not feel good. But so I was just kind of like, oh, okay, yeah. And I felt about it, I think, similarly to how a lot of people still kind of think about masks, where like they'll be wearing a mask, but they'll wear it like
Yeah.
down off their nose or whatever, as or just like have one like hanging off their ear. And and I would do not totally similar things, but like I would wear a mask that I knew was not sealing against me. It was just kind of like loose on my face.
Mm.
um and like I would have the errant thought of just like, is this filtering anything? Is this actually filtering the air? And then being like, and in retrospect now I'm like, no, of course it wasn't. Like it was, I just, if I didn't get sick then, it was very lucky of me. um and because we just like frankly have like really awful public messaging about this, so like people just don't know like basic things about how to wear it, which is also why I'm like very happy to be a source of information about that because I'm like, okay, well, if I like went through all this to like learn and pick up all this information, like I might as well tell people because the fucking CDC isn't gonna do it. So
Right, right, definitely.
yeah.
Yeah, just
Um,
a trusted messenger of it, and just somebody who seems to be, um, just through experience, knowledgeable, to me, because it's just like you said. I mean, initially I was doing the same thing, just putting a mask on. So I felt like if I didn't cough on someone, then I was fine, or I would just look the part, like going to the restaurant and feeling out of place, but doing what everybody else is doing because I don't want to feel out of place type deal when it came to the mask, wasn't really 110% concerned with anything, because I really didn't know what was going on. There was never I guess when my brother caught it, um, and then my parents caught it, I was a little bit more aware. And then when I caught it, I
mhm,
was really more than like, okay, this is real. Um, there's something going on. I had all I experienced everything they said that you should
mhm,
experience, I experienced. Um, so yeah, I mean, when it came to me, initially I didn't know what was going on. I just knew what I was seeing or hearing. Um, and then again, I didn't like I didn't know how effective anything they were telling us was going to be, because it seemed like
mhm.
every week it was something different, this, that, and the
Yeah.
other. So yeah, I mean, just to me, it took a while. Uh, and then again, like, the mask. I would wear glasses. I wear sunglasses all the time, or glasses, and it would always just fog up my glasses because I had to
Mhm,
wear masks in my industry. Um, uh, just being, working around hazardous materials, I would have to wear masks. So I was accustomed to the mask, but
mhm,
I never got to a point where I understood, exactly the usage of them or how to correctly wear one or anything to that extent. So yes, you're right. It's just the lived experience, and then being able to bring it back as a trusted member of the community, and then the messaging there then becomes effective.
mhm.
Um, so yeah. Um, did you get sick with COVID?
As far as I know, no, but also like since like there were a lot of patches in which like PCR testing was just like not available, and like or like rapid tests even weren't available. Um, I don't know for sure. I mean, this is a virus where around 40% of infections are asymptomatic. So
Mm,
like there's which is also why it is like really important to not rely on like someone being like, "Oh, I feel fine." Just like, yeah, okay, well, that doesn't mean anything. Sorry.
yeah, very
um,
little. Yeah, very little.
yeah.
So yeah, so I was just like I said, I was just when I got it, it was just it was horrible.
Hmm.
And I I just beared with it and didn't know like if it was going to become a respiratory issue.
Hmm.
But I felt like I said, everything from that. And so yeah, I just think about it now, and and that's why I said when we were talking before, I was like, it doesn't feel like it, but I
Hmm.
definitely had something.
Right.
Um, so with that being said, at what particular point did you get super serious about it, like you are now, like really start to be an advocate for it, really? I mean, and the other thing that I thought about when we were talking, are there any orgs out there that's actively, like you said, I mean, you said there was some grassroots, um, giving out the PPE, but are there people or organizations that are doing awareness and messaging about it, like yourself?
There's well, okay, let me answer the other question first. um, and thanks for reminding me of that because my brain doesn't work. Uh, so I think it was probably around like early 2021, I think, maybe late 2020. I don't remember exactly, but it was, I think, around then when I was like really starting to like tap more into like the disability justice, both like, I mean, groups, literature, and just kind of like general, like, I don't know, information is too broad a word, but whatever. Like that perspective. And so I, and so like it turns out like folks who are like disabled and like immunocompromised and whatever have like a lot of lived experience with like how yeah, like um health and like public health and medical phenomena like work. So I like I like truly gained like a lot of knowledge through that in ways that were a little more specific because like I'm disabled, but like that's from like a, I call it mechanical, like my spine basically just like does not like doing things, doesn't work great. And so like yeah, I've yeah, had my share of just like dealing with the medical industrial complex and just trash. So I'm like familiar with it from like some standpoints, but like that was a really strong entry point, like from like having a disability justice lens, being able to apply that in more kind of like sharpened ways, if that makes sense,
Hmm.
um, is what like kind of helped me crystallize more about what I was seeing in terms of like, for example, like long COVID, like that's maybe a good example. Whereas like um where folks who already have been dealing with post-viral illnesses for a really long time, um, which like especially ME/CFS or like chronic fatigue syndrome, um, or Epstein-Barr, like there's so like kind of the ties between things that are already in place, like they have historical and lived knowledge from like decades and decades before this,
Hmm.
not to mention like the AIDS epidemic, and so we can like see that um there's a track record of viruses like changing our like the biology of just like how our bodies can function, and like impacting our lives sometimes for the rest of our lives.
Hmm.
Something that like I connected like recently is learning that vertigo and just like associated dizziness can be one of the things that comes out of like a post-viral illness. And I was like, oh my God, I think I have that as like a specific post-viral symptom from high school when I was like, I don't know, sick or whatever. And then like I had a period of time after when for like a couple weeks I had so much vertigo that I could barely stand up
Mm.
and like had a hard time going to classes. And then like it resolved itself, but like every once in a while now I just have days where I wake up and I just have a lot of vertigo. And I was like, "Oh my God, I've been
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure I've been dealing with a post-viral like the symptom in this case is one identifiable thing as far as I can tell for like most of my life."
Okay.
That I didn't realize that this was like as common as it is. And like unfortunately with COVID, like it can do that like a lot. And as someone who already just like struggles with my body and I'm just like, please stop being in pain. I don't need to hear about this all the time. Shut up. Just like on a basic level, I'm just like, I do not need my body to like fall apart even more. And like for someone who's yeah, who's experienced that happening just like really fast and just like radically changing what you are like able to do and like the things you loved doing, like sorry you can't do them now unless you want to like be stuck in bed for like 3 weeks while
Mm.
you're recovering. So like that sort of thing, like it yeah, it made it very clear to me that like on a personal level, like this is really like important that I like avoid this because like if I'm gonna get it, I want to delay it. And if I
Yes.
can avoid it fully, I would like to do that also. Um, and yeah, so like I don't know. I before that I really only had like some bursts of like feeling kind of like worried or like scared about it because it was during like a maybe like a post high risk exposure, and then I was like, oh shit, what if I get it? And outside of that, yeah, really tried to block it out of my head. So before at least at that point, like early 2021, it was, I don't think it was till 2022 that my fiance got COVID and had it like really bad, like really, really bad. Kind of what you're describing is just like, oh, a nice long list of symptoms. Like,
Hmm.
kind of name it, you got it.
Yeah, yeah.
And just like, and involved a trip to the ER and like, and eventually, like, so what I have talked about in our labor course, too, is that they eventually just got pushed out of the job because like yeah, the accommodations that they were like basically trying to just putting like blockages after blockages of like implementing, and they were like, I can't do this. And they had to quit. um and so like they're still, I mean, dealing with like ongoing issues from it, and are like really have been working really hard and also really struggling with recovery because that's just how this illness works.
Hmm.
And so that's, I don't know, that was more so after I already like had, yeah, I already had like a good understanding of like, okay, this shit is serious and I do really don't want to fuck with it like at all. Also because like, to, yeah, not to be too stats heavy, but like to throw some statistics out there. So Latinx folks have one of the highest rates of getting long COVID, which I am, and so is my fiance. And also like trans people have, it's like a 50% long COVID rate, like risk
I
after
didn't know
infection.
that. Yeah, I didn't know
It's
that.
unreal. It is unreal. And I mean, it makes sense if you think about it just in terms, like if you are also looking at, I'm trying to remember like what the Native American risks are. I think it's something around like 40% or 30. Like it's just obscenely high because these are populations that society is like, fuck you, we will not
Mm,
give you the resources you need, and
yeah.
also it will strip you of your dignity. And so
Mm,
like, yeah, so I look at this systemically and I see the patterns and I'm like, yeah, this is disgusting.
mhm.
But anyway, yeah, so like also being trans is like a very high risk, just like, what do they call it? Social, so I forget. It's a social risk factor of sorts.
Yeah.
Just
Oh,
basically, yeah, being part of this demographic group just makes
mhm.
you higher risk because we live in a society that oppresses that group.
Yeah. Well, the thing about it that
Post-viral illness.
the post viral illness. I had met a gentleman like maybe a year and a half ago, and he was disabled and couldn't walk, or he was having trouble at the time walking, and going through a lot of job issues. He was working for Uber, but the reason we met is because at the time I was doing the podcast, I got something to say. Ran into him at a couple of social events on IG. He does a lot with the old, just issues, social issues that revolve around disability and the poor, because those they have an intersectionality, and it was captivated by him. But to segue, go into what we've been talking about, his disability came from COVID. He got COVID, and COVID, he couldn't walk, and then he eventually was able to walk again. But when he's disabled now from COVID, I mean, he has really bad days from it, and that was the first time that I I I associated it with it, but not thinking that this is something. I thought maybe it was just uh specific to his situation, not understanding that these viruses do have these lingering effects
Hmm.
thereafter, and until you actually put that together, I had never connected that being something that happened. So it's really crazy. And this it, even his ability to work, he was going through a lot of, because that's when he really got into big disability act, being activist for it, because he had a lot of bad days. Because prior to that, he was a DJ, fully mobile. I mean, really into I mean, he had his life, you know, and to be at age, you know, a younger guy, early late 30s, early 40s, to wake up one day and can't walk is crazy, and then have to deal with all those things you never had to deal with.
Hmm.
So, this what you're saying to me is really resonating, and without us even having a talk prior about these things. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is why in class, like, I've already said it, I don't know how many times, and I will continue saying it. COVID is a labor issue. It is a
Yes.
labor issue because,
Yes.
like, it is so the way that we structure our society, because, like, class analysis, absolutely imperative. Very, yeah, prescient to mention that. Because, like, you need a class analysis in order to understand the intersections between that and ableism and also like white supremacy,
Hmm.
and like, yeah, so all of these things being very interconnected because of the way that we structure our society,
Hmm.
in that you need to work if you want to eat, if you want to
Well,
have a house, you got
yeah.
to earn a wage.
Yeah.
And so your labor power, um is your ability to work is what's going to allow you to survive. And if you can't, like, I don't know if you, well, yeah, maybe you know some folks who have who are like on disability, SSI or SSDI.
Hmm.
It is abysmal to try and apply to that. They make it really hard to get
Hmm.
in. You usually have to reapply multiple times. And also in the meantime, you're not allowed to work if you are getting, I think it's
Hmm.
SSDI, because, like, if you can work, then you can't be certified, because that's basically a certification that check you do not have to work anymore because you cannot. The state designates you for economic purposes as disabled.
Hmm.
And so, like, so that's like a way that, like, the state and the economy and specifically like working are like fully hinged together. Um and so, and not to keep harping on this, but again, it's the capitalists who are really benefiting from people going out and just like doing shit regardless of whether they're getting infected or not. Because, yeah, they're the ones who are like profiting off of the shit. So
Of course, it
yeah.
makes sense at the end of the day for that for them to not care because first of all, they're not going to be exposed. Second of all, it doesn't matter whether or not you how you because I keep going back to the gentleman and the the days that he said he couldn't get out of bed. That the only job he could do was Uber because it had to be situated around his time. And
Hmm.
most places that you work, you're going to get fired if you miss so many days. Forget all the stuff that they provide for you, all these provisions, they mean nothing because they don't include, the days that you can't get up when if you're dealing with any form of mental illness. And some people just can't go to work because they can't function, but it doesn't take that in consideration.
Hmm.
I've never since we've talked, now I've connected the two, but prior to our conversation, I never really looked at those those areas, those intersectionalities of this, what's going on. But two, as a Mappler, it exposed you to those conversations to elevate that thought to be like, okay, well, there is a more broader conversation that needs to be happening than just, you know, um, whether or not we should wear masks, or whether or not it's bigger and broader than that. Like you say, it's a labor issue, policy issue,
Hmm.
it's a housing issue. Because like when I was with the gentleman, he was having issues with his car. He was behind on his payments because he couldn't work, but that car was his job.
Yep.
It was his
Yep.
way for him to make his money. So it's really frustrating. Um, um, for that for the for to but this is a conversation that's not being had anywhere else, right?
Hmm.
It's all, take off your mask and go buy and go shopping at the Mall of
Hmm.
America,
Hmm.
so I mean, so that's why it's important, and that's why I really wanted to talk to you, because I knew you would bring me a different perspective than what we see or hear. And that's what I have always attempted to do, whether it was criminal justice or whether it might be. I've always wanted to go get that outlier and bring them in to have that conversation, because that
Hmm.
conversation is as important as as any other conversation. Because what I find out that it's not the only reason we're out being marginalized is because that our they don't want to hear our stories, right? It just there's more people. We're not marginalized. There's a lot of people out there that has the same story. It's just they don't want to hear it. It's the
Hmm.
marginalization part. So
Yeah. To, yeah, I mean, to that point, the I mean, we live in a really ableist society that just like really degrades and devalues disabled people. And this is a very strange time for us to be alive because, or like, just because the way that, so yeah, to your point about like, the person that you know's like experience with long COVID, and like, I mean, I am hard pressed to think of anyone who doesn't know someone who's been affected by this to some extent. Um, the like the big picture where we land also is that we are only going to see increases paralleling what we have already seen over the past few years in disability and debility, just generally speaking. So we're just going to have larger disabled populations, globally, but also in the US. And uh, the thing that like a lot of people are like really coming to grips with, especially when they are like suddenly like sometimes like severely disabled, post COVID infection, is that this is a society that does not care or treat well
Mhm,
disabled people. And so like if you, yeah, I mean, whether it's like missing payments for like, for like a car or a mortgage or like or rent, um then, or if it's like you need like accommodations on the job, or like you have suddenly like different ability with your like just mobility, or like sensory stuff. I know a lot of people who are now just like very sensitive to light and like will get migraines and shit. So like you just have to be a lot more careful with like what you're literally what your senses are taking in. Like you suddenly have to pay attention to a lot more stuff. And like come to find that like, oh, it turns out other people don't really care. And by other people I mean like systems.
mhm,
um this so systems are designed to not care and actually find you disposable if you are making too many demands, and also if you can't produce profits that they
mhm,
can extract. So if you can't do those things for them, in exchange for, whatever minor accommodations, and if you need more, then no. But if you, yeah, if you're not basically like worth it to capitalist systems, then like your needs will be just like bulldozed over.
mhm.
and and like, yeah, I just feel like there are a lot of folks who are kind of like figuring that out, unfortunately, in like a very rough way. And so like I also find it important to highlight that like we as a society could choose to change how we orient ourselves toward people's needs and view those as ways to like bring more folks in. Whether it's like for work, like workplaces is such a bare minimum. It's just like, yeah, you like make it easier for someone to like use a rollator in a space, or like, change the height of like countertops so that like folks can access them at like different level, like, or yeah, just like there are a lot of ways to like make things accessible so folks like could work, for example, or whatever, or like remote work. Don't get me started. I hate that
Mhm.
there's a lot of like forcing people into the office when it's like you don't need to do that. No,
Yeah,
we've never needed to do that, and we learned that in 2020.
which
And
was
when I was,
crazy.
yeah,
Yes,
when
yeah.
when I was told that I couldn't, yeah, I couldn't work remotely because we just don't do that. In I think it was like 2015 or whatever, and then 2020 rolled around, and I was like, everyone could have been doing this. Y'all fucking liars.
School's the same way, where education,
Mhm.
you had to go and spend all that time in class, had to travel regardless. But now everything could be Zoom. It's like, why weren't they doing that? But they made
Mhm.
school so more, like the only reason I was able to get my degree is because they made it accessible for
Mhm.
me through COVID. Because COVID was it was a blessing in a sense, not because the pandemic, because then they actually decided that they could do these things that they could do a long time ago.
Mhm.
But and it was so funny. All like Zoom just sat there, and Zoom would never be as popular as it what is now without COVID being in practice. Just
Yeah.
all these things that had set there for that we could be utilizing. And like you said,
Yeah.
there's so many occupations now that where people are working from home. Um,
Mhm.
that like you said could have been in play. They could offer jobs, could have changed the dynamics of a lot of different things.
Mhm.
And then it came about, and it is frustrating at the end of the day. um
Mhm.
are there any organizations out there now that's actually um working or bringing the awareness to it that you think I should know about or we should know about?
I'm gonna see if I can find this spreadsheet.
Because I haven't, because I'm in the org business and I haven't seen any. That's why I'm like so curious to the fact that I would think that like something would have sprung up nationally that would continue this, at
Mhm.
least the awareness part of it, or be uh, a, a place where we can go to find out the latest information, have a trusted source.
Yeah, I mean, so the People's CDC, I'll see if I'll find the link to them. People's CDC. Um, so People's CDC is a really good um resource. They are actually one of the researchers who, yeah, does a lot of work for them is based in the Twin Cities. But anyway, they are really good for this because it was a bunch of basically like public health workers who were like looking at the CDC being like, what are you talking about and why are you endangering people with like misinformation and like obscuring stuff. And so so they organized themselves. Here, I just sent that link too. Um, so that they could be a source for like, so they called themselves the People's CDC because the CDC like is the they serve the capitalists.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah,
Yeah, and so I highly recommend them. They're a great resource. They do like weather reports of just like here's where we're at in terms of like ongoing like active infections. Here's like wastewater data. Here are different like reports. Here's action items. Stuff like that. So
so
yeah,
it's across the board. It's not just COVID. It's across the board, right? With awareness, the people
they do.
CDC.
Yes, so they
Uh,
do. I mean, I would say that their focus is very heavily on COVID because that's where they kind of like were born out of, and they're just like, this is really awful. So we need to like counterbalance this. So it is a large part of their thing, but they very clearly have a strong intersectional view.
mhm,
Because like I've also seen that like they highlighted like Palestinian liberation like movements and are like advocating for a ceasefire and we're highlighting that like and here's and they shouted out our group which I thought was very cool but so they were saying like here are like some like mutual aid groups that are like making sure to provide people masks at protests
great.
so it's like important to like keep each other safe as we are like fighting the state on
Yeah,
things
yeah.
the other link that I sent is this one is more like ragtag groups. This is I don't know, that's what I call it. It's mutual aid sort of stuff. So those are state and local organizations. My group is on here. It's COVID Aware TC
Hmm.
uh in Minnesota. But so so that's a list of groups just in different regions that do whether it's like mask blocks, which is literally just like people who get masks together and like distribute them to people. Or it could be organizing for testing. There's what is it? Clean Air Club, I think is on here. Clean Air Crew, maybe. There are a couple different ones, but they focus on like specifically. There's one of them that focuses on for music events. So like at concerts, they'll bring they have people who like bring in air purifiers and then they do CO2 monitoring to see if like they need to change the ventilation. It's so there are groups that specialize in different things or do different work. But um so there's unfortunately, it very much is not a like there that's not true. There are definitely groups, like larger groups. So like National Nurses United, which is the US largest union of nurses. They had been advocating for like an increase in PPE and changing OSHA regulations for healthcare workers since like end of 2019, beginning of 2020. So they've been like at the forefront of this. But yeah, it really is. I mean, that's I think as close to like traditional power structures as you can
Mhm.
get because like truly for the most part like most institutionalized like powers are actively interested in like not addressing this, which is
Yes.
unfortunate because strategically, especially for like, I don't know, say like nonprofits who, you know, are like ostensibly interested in like movement work, it's like yeah, sorry, that's a tangent. I just get very frustrated with leftist groups that are like, yeah, we need to like, you know, fight the power and whatever, and also be like, yeah, wearing a mask is too hard. I'm just like, my guy, like, this is like 101. If it is accessible to you, I need you to wear a mask because that's what makes it accessible for like, I don't know, immunocompromised people who are like agitating and organizing around things, and also you're making it not safe for them to go anywhere. So like, fuck you.
I feel like that's a class that needs to be taught, collegiately, where where is that, where do we find ourselves? How proactive for a cause can you be when you don't really you're not holistically involved, mind, body, everything. So you can mentally be active, right? We're going to fight the power, but then you're like, okay, well, everything else, we're going to sort of like, it's not that big of a deal. To me, it's a holistic look at everything because mind, body, so everything must be a one accord. And I just think yeah, that's true. I mean, it really, that's my litmus test when it comes to even dealing with people, is that onerous, that holistic look at things, because everything has to move. And yeah, I mean, to me, you know, if you're against, this thing that's an injustice, you have to be with this thing that's injustice. But we also want to make sure that the people who are with us, the followers, are truly, you know, they're protected also. And
Hmm.
so yeah, I mean, it just to me, it just all makes sense if you're truly um involved with the cause and you truly understand um the movement, truly what it is. So yes, that was definitely um I mean, now listening to you and talking to you, it makes total sense for those all to be one. You should be as concerned with this COVID as you are concerned with African Americans being shot dead by the police,
Hmm.
period. Or that should be somewhere. And so yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. I
Is
mean, those
there
are like highly related things. Like I mean, the first thing I thought of when you were saying that was like Eric Adams, mayor of New York City, saying like we have to ban face masks in businesses because like people are going to go in and do crime, and so like if you are wearing a mask it makes you like a target for cops to for them to just like, you know, overly, well, any amount of policing is over policing, but to be policing people and like say like, no, you have to take down your mask like in order to come in so we can see your face, it's for security purposes. Like these things are highly related, and
Mhm.
also like that's another thing that I like really can't stand when leftists like won't wear masks. It's like this is also like this is useful for many things. Not only is it preventative in terms of like transmitting and receiving like airborne illnesses, it is also like an important way to like cover your face so that like state surveillance of cameras that are literally everywhere can't just like get your facial information. And like, and I don't know, yeah, there's a lot of like information that just like gets picked up just everywhere in the world, and I'm just like, you, if I can prevent some of that coming through like from me just like wearing my face out in the world, like I will keep other people from seeing that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, when you said that, I thought about surveillance. Like, that could be one of the crucial things, the behind the scene conversation we didn't even have, is that it did cause problems with people being surveilled on a regular basis because you have to take down your mask. And I did now, like I said, until we had this conversation, I really didn't think about it in those terms and why it was such a push to now remove the mask for as the pop, for the population. So that could be along with the capitalist economic implication, but they're all in bed together. So it's really the same movement to take it down and act as if there's no real danger when there is. At the end of the day, you should have it. But
Mhm.
yeah, it's all in their self interest, not ours.
Yeah, it's safer for capital if they can like see our faces, to be able to track someone if they like fucking, I don't know, steal diapers or whatever.
Well,
Like,
yeah, well,
yeah,
yeah,
like,
go,
um,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
not safer for me to not
yeah,
to be
right,
forced to take a mask off.
like,
And yeah,
yeah,
so the question really is like, well, who is it keeping safe? Or rather, what is it keeping safe? Because
right.
what cops do is protect property. So
Yeah, we know. Yeah, we know
yeah.
that. That's just a. We can. I
Hmm.
could do a whole nother thing on that. That understanding. But
Yep.
But now, I thank you for your time. Uh, everything. The conversation was great. I mean, I think that a reason I usually try to interject a little bit, but I was appreciating the information you brought to me, and educating me in a sense, and that's reason I really wanted to talk to you is because I have not found the information or believe that I have a trusted way of receiving the information. So I haven't really done my research or looked into it as much. So it's great to have someone who has. And like I said, have classes with you, and I know how diligent you are when it comes to uh, researching. So I know that it's all on point. So I thank you for sitting down and at least talking to me,
Hmm.
and making me aware or making us aware of what's still going on, because it's not over with yet. It's still going on, and I think it's affecting people more so than it did before, because people are less likely to cover their, I mean, it's not the same as it was before. The awareness is not the same. The cost is not the same. So
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, it's like something that I'm trying to like remember and like actively practice more is that like, I mean, white supremacy culture will like tell us that we have to be highly individualized and like
Hmm.
in our own lane, and also like we have to do everything ourselves. And it's really important to be able to like lean on other people, and that also means that like I absolutely have huge gaps in knowledge where I'm just like, I don't know what I'm talking about. And so it's like, and that doesn't mean that like I need to do all that research. Like there are not enough years in my life where I'll be able to like learn all of the things and like live all the experience, because importantly like we have different lived experiences because we like, yeah, live different lives. And so like being able to like glean that from other people is super important. And so like, I don't know, if my nerd shit is helpful for other people, great, I'm happy to share it. And
At
also
the,
because like I have so much to learn from other people, like it is, yeah, it's great when I get to do that with others too.
well, and it's important that we do that, and this as communal. I mean, because now the movement is a more communal society. Once you start graduating yourself from capitalism, you start understanding the value of just living in a commune and
Hmm.
having everybody um
Like interdependence and stuff.
interdependent, and just but just in not pushing yourself to this mortgage and dying to pay a mortgage, but being able to live, in most societies outside the United States, you find that they live a lot longer and they have a more valuable life because they enjoy life. They're not worrying about, again, just being, having to pay bills or whatever, because they're not under the same rat race that we're in. So again, it's just that it's important. Once you get, I just think an elevation of thought is to look at a more communal, a more common community system that involves us working together, opposed to us working against each other at the
Hmm.
end of the day. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
that's,
that's
yeah. That's, it's so, yeah, it's so important. And I think you probably hear me say this in class a lot too, that like the like um it is important to identify our true enemies. And so like that can be really hard when like our peers or like comrades are saying stuff that is like either like disagreeable or just like saying some like racist shit or like
Hmm.
some ableist shit or whatever, saying some fuck shit where it's just like that shit's not okay. To not, yeah, where that's like not something that we want to like forgive or just like ignore or like bypass, but that like it's important to work through that to the capacity of the people who have the privilege to be able to like actually like work on that with someone rather than the person who's the one like maybe in a more oppressed state in that relationship. But anyway, like that's really important to like work through relationally rather than to like do what capitalism does and discard someone if they are
Hmm.
sharing ideas, even if they're like horrendous, to like want to at least like want and try to like bring them in and work through that. Because like yeah, we the power is within, like I don't know, it's the slogan is like the power is the people, but like but it is that because it's true.
Hmm.
Because like it is the common folk who like have huge amounts of power and unfortunately cede it a lot of the time. And so like yeah, our shared enemy are capitalists and like people who uphold white supremacy culture. And like yeah, like those are my enemies. Like I may not like all of the people who I am in shared struggle with or agree with them all of the time, but like I I want to have their interests, even if it is not their ideas, in in solidarity with me, and their interests, yeah, also something that I'm fighting for.
Yeah, that's exactly my fight every day, just that, because I mean that's it.
Hmm.
Thank you for coming on. Thank you for giving me your time. It took
Hmm.
us a long time to get to this particular
Yeah,
point. Yeah, I just
sorry.
thought you had forgot about me, and then I get an email out of the blue like, "Oh, I'm going through my emails, and I see this email for like a while ago."
I'm awful at emails. Sorry.
Yeah, so I just forgot about it, and I was just wasn't gonna even worry about it. But I kept thinking like maybe I should just reach out. Maybe I should reach out.
Yeah.
I was like
I
whatever.
always tell people, please feel free to ping me. I probably missed it. Like, yeah. So
It's all good. But
thanks for your
it
patience on your end.
no, it came together when it's supposed to come together, and right now it's perfect. So I'm good with it. I
Great.
want to say good night. Do you have Cash App?
Oh yeah, I do.
Can
Sorry.
you
That was
can I'll put my number in an email to you. If you email me your Cash App, I'll just Cash App you the money. Make it
Thank
easy.
you. I
Okay?
appreciate that. I forgot that there was a yeah, thanks.
It's all good. Yeah, so just and I'll probably do it tomorrow, not tonight, so you'll get it.
Take your time.
And
Yeah.
and I'll just let you know I sent it. And we're all good. Thank
So
you. You have a
thank
nice
you.
night. All right now.
Yeah, you too. I'll see you on Saturday then.
Oh yeah. Oh, bright and early
Yeah,
with the camera off.
that's
Oh my
right.
God. This like I
He's
just
still waking up.
never taken another Saturday morning class. That was a bad idea. I think I'll be better at a noon Saturday. I'm still gonna take a Saturday class, but I was like thinking like, oh, I take a Saturday class early in the morning. I still have my Saturday, and it's just so off. I don't care how what time I go to bed. I just waking up at Saturday in the morning class. It's just so like, oh my God. But
Hmm.
I'm a bear with it. I mean, it's not the class. It's just Saturday morning at 9 o'clock. I have to get up and be on camera. It's the problem I'm dealing with right now. But
That's real. Hmm.
I'll be all right. It's other stuff going on in the world than
That's
that.
yeah, I mean, true. But we'll make
Yeah,
it.
we'll definitely make it. All right. I see you. You have a good night.
You too.
All
Bye.
right. Bye bye.